Hi, Frosty.
This drive every most Tuesday night.
All right. Being 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order, and if Kathy, you'll do the roll call, please.
Frosty Marriott.
Here.
Ben Baumfock.
Here.
Heather Henry.
Here.
Marty Silverstein.
Here.
Erica Sparhawk.
Here.
Luis Ianes.
Here.
And Dan Richardson.
Here. All right. Item number 2 on the agenda is our consent agenda, and Jay, sounds like we're not taking anything off.
We're all good.
We're good to go. So we have the accounts payable, trustee minutes from April 10th, liquor license renewal for the RVR Master Association, liquor license renewal for Koniaku, liquor license renewal for Senior Taco, liquor license renewal for Beijing Tokyo, modification of premises and revocable license agreement for Senior Taco, the amicus brief for Boulder County, DOLA grant, engineering at wastewater treatment plant, revocable license agreement with Batch, ordinance number 5, series of 2018, broadband shadow conduit, Cedar Networks memorandum of understanding, the donation and installation of shadow conduit, survey on broadband tax rates, bike pedestrian trails recommendation for appointment, and purchase of camera transporter. A big one. Any questions or, yes?
So the amicus brief, it was just a letter and then said it was going to make it an agenda item. Is it up for discussion, or are we approving that we're...
The last meeting I understood it that we weren't going to weigh in on editing anything. It was really just a yay or nay whether or not we want to endorse that or not.
Okay.
So, you good with that?
And so this is just endorsing that same thing that we talked about?
Yes.
Okay.
Nothing new.
Great.
And Dan, it's a take rate study, not the tax rate. It's just a typo.
Oh, yeah.
Put it
Thank you.
together, so.
That's right. I knew that. Any other questions on the consent agenda? Frosty, would you like to make a motion to?
No. I would not. You made me do that again.
What about finishing strong? Move to approve the consent agenda.
Coming.
Second.
Motion by Heather, seconded by Erica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. All right. Item number 3 is persons present not on the agenda. If you'd like to talk to the board about something that's not on the agenda, please come forward.
Hold on.
Is there anybody else who'd like to talk about something not on the agenda? Okay.
I told them we meant 6 o'clock sharp when we say 6 o'clock sharp.
All right. Hi. And you can
be up there.
You can go to the podium, and if you would, just give us your name and address and take it away.
I want to go. Oh, okay. Okay.
Hi, Kelsey.
And Danielle's going to jump in as soon as she's ready.
We'd love to get it on the record, so if you don't mind. Thank you.
Okay, so we're representing Carbondale United for School Safety. I'm Kelsey Goodman, and this is Daniela Rivera, and we are also representing some other students, Natasha Kotz, Lillian Peary, Solana Tytler, Charlie Candela, and I'm missing one. Oh, that's it. Okay, and this is a group of students who really came together with the recent violence in schools and kind of wanted to have a group that kind of said, like, we feel safe in our schools, and we want to ensure, especially that the little Rams here in our town feel safe here too. And so they kind of bound together and created this group called Carbondale United for School Safety. And they came to me with this idea, and they said, we want to do a walkout. Though, again, actually here at Roaring Fork High School, they kind of have, there's a history of not really doing walkouts, so they kind of thought, how can we do this a little bit differently? So one way of doing a walkout is kind of against the school, and the school policy is if they wanted to do a walkout, they could do it without the permission of the school district, and they could do it on their own. Students could organize and do a walkout. They could also do it with the permission of the school and do something a little bit different, get the permission of the school and the school district. which is what they did. So they organized and created an event, which will be this coming April 27th at 9:35. They presented it to Roaring Fork High School first, and then to CMS, CRES, CCS, and actually all of the schools here in Carbondale, so Bridges, Waldorf, CCS, CRMS, pretty much everything that the public entities here, so the Carbondale Fire, and also the Carbondale Police Department, everything that they protect, so all the students here. Pretty much we wanted just to say thank you to all of our protectors, and we're really uniting on the football field just to say, especially to the Little Rams, you are safe, you are welcome, you are valued, and that's happening at 9:35 on the football field. Everyone is welcome. We're all wearing blue to say that we're united in color, in this similar color. We're going to start kind of with this crew game, because a lot of our schools have this crew thing, that we are crew, not passengers. And so one of our games that we're going to do to start is just kind of this mingle game to get everyone together and united. Then we have a couple of speakers that are all going to talk on the theme of unity, and kind of talking about that there are aggressors from the outside. We also have different people that, there are also things that can attack us from within, so even from mental health perspective as well as bullying. And so there are lots of support systems here within Carbondale. Our students have done a really great job. Daniela herself has really been involved with Mind Springs, Aspen Hope. There are so many different resources here, so they've combined all of them into different handouts and pamphlets, and kind of combined all these different ways to say there's help, there's support, and make sure that you know how to get that kind of help and reach out. If you know somebody who's struggling, make sure to be the voice and be the support system. So it's going to be a really great event. We want to make sure that everyone feels welcome to come. So everyone from the little kindergartners to our fire chief is going to be there. So we're really excited. Weather dependent, so we already got pushed back 1 week, so we're hoping to have sunny skies.
Thank you, Kelsey. What a thoughtful approach to this bigger issue, and thank you for saying thank you to the police department. I'm sure they're very grateful, and it sounds like a great event and going to be some good information. So again, it's Friday at 9:30 at the high school football field.
Or at CMS, but yes.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, at the football field, and we'd love to see anyone who wants to be there. So
all right.
We feel really lucky to live here in Carbondale with the support and resources we have.
Well, thanks for coming and speaking. All right.
Thank you.
All right. See you Friday.
Yep, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to address the board on an issue that's not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will bring it back to the board for trustee comments. Anybody got anything?
Hey, Dan, so my girls just got here from Louisiana. They're supposed to be here, but they're not, so can we wait I'd like to wait till Carly and Shiloh get here, if that's okay, if we can.
Yeah, well, it'll take us a little bit of time to
Okay.
do regular trustee
Just wanted to give
comments.
you a heads up there.
Yep.
Two girls, they're just, you know what happens.
Yep.
They're late.
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, Frosty.
I have a couple.
Okay.
I can fill some time. So yesterday, the Muscle-Free Colorado Act was signed by the governor, the governor's office. So this will go a long way towards being able to kind of set the legislative structure around more significant funding for the ANS program throughout the state. So that was pretty cool. And a ton of work went into that all around the state. RUAPA here locally and Mark Fuller, but a number of different water entities have come together and pretty much flooded the state capitol to say that this is really a got to. So that is one. And then two, I wasn't here on the 10th when maybe Marty had already mentioned this, but the housing survey, so for our regional housing assessment, the actual housing survey is now out. So you can find that on our website, carbondalegov.org, and then go to news and announcements, and you'll see it's basically called the Garfield County Housing Authority Survey. So there's a specific link to that, but our site will take you to that. So this is not just about people that are looking for housing. It's really all of us filling that out so that there's an understanding of where we're living, where we're working, how much we're commuting, how even those of us that have stable housing, how we feel about affordable housing in the valley, etc. So I really encourage everyone to go on, fill that out, send it to your employers, your employees, your friends, your relatives. Kind of the more we can get participating, I think the better understanding, especially with this is a very regional study. So this is going all the way from, Aspen essentially over to the Eagle Valley. And it's coming out in a lot of different ways, but the more we can spread the word, the merrier. Lastly, Saturday is Waste Diversion Day. Yay! So you've been stashing your tires and your mattresses and waiting for this day. I know you all have. We still need volunteers. If anyone can volunteer on Saturday, we could use what's kind of left or some strong arms to muscle some stuff, especially around like e-waste, some TVs, things like that. Email me. I'll set you up. I know the slots that are still available. It's a 3 to 4 hour shift. Otherwise, bring all your waste that you would like to divert from a landfill. That too can be found on our website. Saturday, 8 to 4. E-waste, mattresses, textiles. There's a book swap, your batteries, your light bulbs. You can swap your old light bulbs for new LEDs. All kinds of really cool stuff. And right next door here at the corner of 4th and Carbondale.
Colorado.
Thanks,
Colorado.
We knew what you meant.
That's it.
All right. Anybody else? Marty?
Briefly, we had KDNK's 35th anniversary birthday party at 3rd Street, and that seemed to be a really big success. Lots of people there, lots of music, and lots of fun. So that was nice to see. There was a benefit at 3rd Street also for the little boy from Marble who had health issues, and that was a raging success as well. They had literally over 100 silent auction items and food and music, and they raised a good deal of money for his family. So both of those things, Carbondale supports our communities.
All right. I have a handful of items. First, tomorrow is an open house for RFTA's what's now being called Destination 2040, which is right now we're exploring whether or not to go to the voters for a mill levy in November. So it's an open house on the types of projects that could be funded by that and some Q&A. So that's going to be here tomorrow from 6 to 7:30. So I'd encourage everyone to attend, especially trustees, because we're going to be weighing in at our first May meeting on how we want to act on that. Second, thanks to True Nature Healing Arts for a tour of the Kiva. What a fantastic facility that is. They really have big plans beyond the Kiva and that whole campus. And what an addition it's been to the town of Carbondale, so thanks to that. I've received several letters lately from students around town on various issues. I think there's just been an encouragement for students to be engaged, everything from where dogs are allowed to smoking to bullying, all kinds of things. So the students have been active writing letters, so I wanted to say thank you to all those students. The town's about to start some crack sealing, so you can go to our town website and look at a map to see if we're going to be crack sealing your street, but we ask for you not to park on the street while we do that. And again, you can go to our website, go to Public Works, and you'll see a map for crack sealing. And then lastly, May 5th is Arbor Day. So while some of you might be here for Frosty Marriott Day, I have a proclamation for Celebrate Arbor Day that I'm going to read. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Dan Richardson, Mayor of the town of Carbondale, Colorado, do hereby proclaim Saturday, May 5th, 2018, as Arbor Day. I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. So, here's to Arbor Day.
All right. I had one quick trustee comment.
Yes, sir.
I thought somebody else would hit it, but they didn't. Just 5 Points. I think most of us attended
All right.
5 Points Film Festival, and it was another really great event for the town of Carbondale. And a huge shout out to the town staff. Jesse, that runs the rec center, did a great job in providing that as a facility for something that I think is a great example of building on our strengths. It's an economic stimulus to the town, certainly, and right in line with the kinds of things that people love about Carbondale. So it was just a great event all the way around.
Any other comments? All right. So as I'm sure most of you know, this is Frosty Marriott's last meeting. And if I'm not mistaken, Frosty has some comments he wants to make. Before you do, I just wanted to really express my appreciation to you, Frosty. You've been the sage on the board since all of us rookies have been on the board for 2 years. Most of you don't know that Frosty's offered a lot of coaching to me behind the scenes at lunches and various things, and I greatly appreciate that. It's helped me along my journey. You're quite the passionate environmentalist, and it's been inspiring to me, whether it's plastic in the ocean or recycling or protecting wildlife. It's amazing to me how dedicated you are to those causes, and like I said, it's inspiring. So while it's only been 2 years, I really appreciate your efforts, and I wish you luck as you move on. But so without further ado, Frosty, I wanted you to have some words.
Well. So, y'all won't believe this, but I've actually been keeping notes for 10 years of what I wanted to say at this No, I haven't been doing that. Gotcha. So, gratitude first, right? Carly Marriott, more than one person has told me that you have to have been an angel on this earth to have put up with me for over 35 years. And I think at least you qualify for sainthood. You have been my rock, and we have only just begun, which is what they sang at our wedding. Shiloh, you were and are an answer to prayer and an apple of our eyes. You're your mama's P&J. That's pride and joy. And it provided us so much joy and happiness over the years. And your mom's eyes light up when she speaks about you. Heather, my other daughter, I'm so proud of her and her family. They work in her work at St. Jude's. Jeremiah, who's having a hard time coming into the mainstream like I did many years ago, is about to, I hope, break through with his app he's working on, so that'll be good. Dan and my fellow trustees, I have a letter for each of you, so I've written you a note. I'll give it to you. Carbondale, you have a town staff second to none. Jay, your leadership and perspectives have proved invaluable to this town, and to me in particular over the years. Folks should know we've talked 3 to 4 times a week. You probably might not have thought that, but we do. We talk a lot. Now you don't have to take my calls anymore.
I already answered that.
But like I've been saying, you're going to miss me. Mark, your counsel and support, especially when that $600 an hour attorney from Denver, that developer's attorney, came to town, threatened to sue me personally and the town for ex parte communications on KD&K, was so appreciated. It bolstered my confidence and cemented my decision not to submit to their demand for my recusal. Kathy, your no-nonsense professionalism and steady hand at the wheel on all things licensed has been an inspiration to witness. You're an integral part of why other towns model their regs and rules after hours. So thank you for what you've meant to me, and I'll miss you.
Shoot.
Renee's not here, but her demeanor, professionalism, and patience with presenting the town budget to everyone, I think was her presentation style was so appreciated, especially I know for our new members, because it's not easy to go through all those numbers. It's not easy for me after I did debit on the left, credit on the right all day, and then come and be interested again in numbers. But she kept it interesting. Kevin has not been here long enough for me to learn to pronounce his last name. But his initiative and knowledge have been impressive. Public Works is in great hands, and Larry Ballinger before him did such a wonderful job for us. Eric stepped in and took over Parks and Rec after Jeff had been here for 17 years, and Parks and Rec didn't miss a beat. This town staff is phenomenal. You're in good hands. I was hoping Chris Wordsmith would be here. I'm going to take this final opportunity to tell how I met Chris, just because I think y'all will find it interesting. The first time we met, I was standing in my backyard in the snow, barefooted, in my pajamas, screaming at some idiot that had tried to break in our house. And about that time, I was out there screaming and hollering, and I thought to myself, what if the guy's got a gun? And I turned to look over my left shoulder, and there was Chris. And it was like an avenging angel had appeared. He asked, "Are y'all all right?" And then renewed his chase of this guy who was running from him. Gene Schilling, early on, he and I agreed to disagree on some substantive issues. But we agreed to be friends and agree to disagree. When I brought the idea to Gene about equipping our officers with Narcan over 3 years ago, he was receptive, and with Jay's help, we got it done. There are at least 2 folks still breathing today because our police had Narcan. Their mamas don't have to deal with that unfillable void that they would have had to deal with. I know this because I got to speak to one of them. Mark, thank you for showing up. Water and wastewater always works like clockwork. However, that time you told us our new system would reduce our sewage to the consistency of spaghetti almost made me lose my love of Italian food. But you've done a wonderful job, and thank you so much. Serving as town trustee for the last 10 years has been one of the greatest honors of my life. I've been thinking for over a month just how do I relate how much this has meant to me and my family. To adequately do that, I need to give you a little backstory, so please humor me for just a little bit. As many of you know, I played on a tournament flag football team for the time I lived in Houston until I moved to Colorado. So in the South, football is like hockey. Everybody plays. Carly was my biggest fan, but on the night of this incident, she was under the weather, so she couldn't attend our scrimmage game. September of 1989, our team was sponsored by Bud Light, not Miller Lite, Stacy. And it was a practice game against a bunch of ex-Grambling college players, several of which had played pro ball. I went up to catch a touchdown. The D-back ran under me, came down really hard with the ball cradled between my back and the ground, and it really hurt. The pain increased, but I was able to drive home, and I came in the door and was having trouble breathing, and Carly remarked how pale I was and asked me, "Have you hurt yourself?" Again. I was refusing to go to the ER because my birthday was in a couple of days. I was afraid they'd put me in the hospital. I'd miss my birthday. But we had a doctor that lived next door. Carly called him, made him come over. He said, "You got to go to the ER." So I had a cracked rib and it punctured my left lung. It was partially collapsed. They admitted me to the hospital, but I was able to cajole them into letting me out on my birthday, September 18th, with a promise of bed rest. Carly was not feeling well then, and we were both on bed rest. Well, a couple of friends came by. "It's your birthday. Let's go have a burger and a beer." Okay, so in the wee hours when I rolled in with no key, because I was only going to have a burger and a beer, Carly said, I think something to the effect of, "Are you trying to kill yourself?" Thank goodness her Mama Grizzly persona kicked in, and off we went back to the ER. Unfortunately, it was the same doctor that I'd seen a couple of days before. He was not impressed that I was back. It took him 3 incisions to get the tube in my chest, and I don't remember a pain shot because he could smell the beer on my breath and knew just what had gone on. Boy, that hurt. The next day, I got out of the ICU, and I called Carly, and I said, she was in bed. The doctor had put her on bed rest. She was expecting. We didn't know till she went to the doctor when I was in the hospital. One of my mentors once told me that sometimes your story becomes God's story, and it's no longer your story, and you're supposed to share those stories. It can be really uncomfortable to share those stories. Fast forward 2 months to November of 1989, 2 months later. Carly had twins and had already lost one. Now we'd made multiple trips for sonograms. The baby was kicking and moving, had a discernible heartbeat. We thought we were out of the woods and were going to be proud parents. We were so excited. I was in the dining room when I heard Carly scream. Pain and anguish rushing towards her. I screamed, what's wrong? What's wrong? Sobbing and crying, she said, "I just lost our baby," and collapsed in my arms. I picked up our four-month-old baby out of the toilet to take it to the hospital because I thought we needed a funeral because we had bonded to that baby. We already loved it. Say we were heartbroken. It's an understatement. I had real questions on God on this, as I know Carly did as well. I had only recently changed from the epitome of sex, drugs, and rock and roll to God, family, and friends. But Carly and I grew closer. Fast forward to 4 years to November of '93, Carly and I were still heartbroken over the loss of our baby. We'd done everything to get pregnant, it was just not happening. Carly, ever the pillar of faith, pointed out that the upcoming weekend would be the prime time to try again. I remember saying, "Carly, I'm so tired of this. We set ourselves up for a disappointment every month, and I just can't do it anymore. When God wants us to be pregnant again, we will be pregnant again. I don't want to hear it anymore." Well, it so happens this was our 10-year anniversary, and it was a state flag football championship. we'd won it the year before, so it wasn't right for me not to go. So I told Carly, we're going to spend the weekend at the Holiday Inn with all the guys on our 10-year anniversary. It's going to be so much fun. She rolled her eyes. Said, I know what she said, oh my God. But I tricked her. We went down to a plantation, bed and breakfast, Crayon Point Plantation in Sunset, Louisiana. And we were the only people there. We had our own chef, butler. The staircase was filmed for Gone with the Wind. It was really a fancy spot with all this period furniture from Millard, the guy that made furniture in New Orleans, and Carly had thought we were staying at the Holiday Inn. But we had a dozen red roses on the dresser, mint juleps on the veranda, and Anna Maria pancakes for breakfast. It was a storybook 10-year anniversary. Meanwhile, I'd started a job, and I'm really kind of getting there, guys, so just bear with me a little bit longer. These stories could go on for a while. I accepted a job in Denver, in Lakewood, and Carly and I decided we needed a new start. I didn't know it at the time, but I thought Carly was all in. About 10 years later, she told me she didn't really want to go. but she went because that's what I wanted to do. I still remember waving goodbye to Carly with my U-Haul trailer behind me and one of the dogs we'd now named Shiloh because we didn't think we were going to have a baby girl. So I was going to go back and get Carly over the Christmas holidays. Imagine my absolute amazement when Carly called the day before us to fly back and excitedly told me we were pregnant. God, family, and friends. It's God's story. I tell folks we moved west in a modern-day Conestoga wagon, which was a U-Haul trailer and truck. Had a pregnant wife and 2 dogs. We had 1 car. In the interest of time, fast forward one more time with me to February '98. My biggest client was moving to Snowmass and wanted me to close to him to work. Our realtor, Rafi Bass, had just showed us RVR. It was cloudy. We couldn't even see Cypress. Had no idea what magnificent view that was going to be from River Valley Ranch. There was no golf course. There was no clubhouse. It was only just a few homes. Carly, when we ate at the poorhouse, so we've gone full circle. Tonight, I hope most of you will join us at the poorhouse because that's where we first ate our first meal and decided Carbondale was going to be our home. Carly and I realized when we went out Catherine Store Road that this was where God had been leading us all along. And as they say, the rest is history. Carly has never given up on me or God. Shiloh got to grow up in this wonderful valley. And I got to help shape this wonderful community for 10 years. For 10 years I got to do this. I'm so grateful. And I'm going to repeat this because it's really true. There couldn't, if you went and looked in what Wikipedia, the definition of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, my name might have been under it. I was bad. Bad. God, family, and friends. So many times on the way to town hall, I would say, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. It was my mantra. And now I wrote in here, so let me try to wrap this up quick before Dan cuts me off. I was always searching for Neil Young's proverbial heart of gold and didn't even know it. God led me there, but for His grace, I never would have met my wife of almost 35 years. I would be gone to glory or somewhere. Thank you, Carly, for being a wonderful wife. and Mother for always staying up and listening when I got home from council and needed to talk. We all have stories. You all have stories. Ours has become one of God's stories. So just a couple of lessons I want to share, some thoughts. Have faith in something bigger than yourself. Have vision. Follow your heart. Live with as few regrets as possible. It's not possible to live without them, but you can live with as few as you can. Believe in yourself and find someone else who believes in you. And whatever you do, finish strong. Whatever you do. Set your priorities. Mine are now God, friends, and family. It didn't happen overnight. There was lots of bumps in the road. But I had a good woman beside me. Y'all, thanks to Carbondale, y'all have done so much for me and my family. I so appreciate it. And this devotional that a couple of weeks ago, I said this is what I want to leave everyone with. Each day is a gift to be treasured. Each year is an opportunity to reach new heights. Each decade is a call to share your talents, your passions, and your heart with others. Lord, help me live each day with joy and service until the very moment you call me home. God bless my family, God bless my friends, and God bless Carbondale, Colorado.
Thanks, Frosty.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Frosty. So, would you like to make comments? So, as Frosty mentioned, there's going to be a gathering right next door, right after, well, in just a few minutes. And then there'll be a migration over to the poorhouse. So if you have comments and well wishes you'd like to offer to Frosty, that would be an opportune time. But in the meantime, any board comments before we move on? Oh, okay.
It's a hard act to follow.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell a story.
Frosty, you summed up your time very well. This is a small token of our appreciation, but it's the town that you love and have taken such good care of over the last 10 years.
Thank you so much.
And some cards that try and capture our thoughts, so thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Good luck.
My pleasure. Let me know if I can ever help.
I'm sure you'll let us know too. All right. Mark, anything from you?
No.
Okay. So with that, we are ending the old business end of the meeting, and Kathy is going to lead us into swearing in of Lonnie.
So Dan, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, and the rest of us.
Right.
And then you and I can sit this one out.
So if you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Dan Richardson,
I, Dan Richardson,
do solemnly, sincerely,
I do solemnly and sincerely
and truly declare
and truly declare
and affirm
and affirm
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Colorado,
and of the state of Colorado,
and I will faithfully perform
and I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Carbondale Mayor,
of Carbondale Mayor,
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And if you can sign. Erica, will you join me, please? So if you raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, Erica Sparhawk,
I, Erica Sparhawk,
do solemnly, sincerely,
do solemnly, sincerely,
and truly declare
and truly declare
and affirm that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United
of
States
the United States
and of the state of Colorado,
and of the state of Colorado,
and I will faithfully perform
and I will faithfully perform
the duties
the duties
of the office
of the office
of Carbondale Trustee,
of Carbondale Trustee,
upon which
upon which
I am about to enter.
I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Louise, please.
Got a long list tonight.
So if you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Louise Llanes,
I, Luis Llanes,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
by the ever-living God
by the ever-living God
that I will support
that I will support
the
the
Constitution
Constitution
of the United
of the
States
United States
and of the state of Colorado,
and of the state of Colorado,
and I will faithfully perform
and I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Carbondale Trustee,
of Carbondale Trustee,
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Yes, sir. Congratulations. Heather, join me. Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Heather Henry,
I, Heather Henry,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
by the ever-living God
by the ever-living God
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Colorado,
and of the state of Colorado,
and I will faithfully perform
and I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Carbondale Trustee,
of Carbondale Trustee,
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations. Repeat after me. I, Lonnie Kitching,
I, Lonnie Kitching,
do solemnly, sincerely,
do solemnly, sincerely,
and truly declare
and truly declare
and affirm
and affirm
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United
of the
States
United States
and of the state of Colorado,
and of the state of Colorado,
and I will faithfully perform
and I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Carbondale Trustee,
of Carbondale Trustee,
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so the next order of business is significantly less exciting than anything we've done so far. So you're welcome to stick around, or you can move to the room next door where there's some, I think, some cake and
There's lots of food.
lots of food.
Lots
So,
of
Frosty, you want to lead the procession to the? Are we all taking? Yeah, and we'll meet everybody at the poorhouse. Or are we taking a break?
we'll finish up business and we'll leave it next door.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So, item number 7.
She's my buddy.
Wait, we gotta wait for Lonnie.
Yeah, Lonnie's gotta get up
she
here.
join us.
I was gonna say, it's official.
Kathy, we don't have a sign for her yet.
What?
Yes.
So I went down to Glenwood today to do a bunch of stuff, and I knew that it was going to happen. And as soon as I got back, I got an email that it was ready. So I'll pick it up tomorrow.
Okay.
So it will be ready for the next meeting.
All right.
And they should get that old one for frosting.
What's that? Lonnie, welcome. Yeah.
Very much, and I want to thank each of you for your warm welcomes. It's really made me feel good about being here, and I look forward to working with the team.
All right. Right on. And Kathy just mentioned that your sign will be ready tomorrow, so we didn't have it today, but you'll people will know who you are at the next meeting. So, we'll wait to close that.
It's going to be noisy.
It's okay. Item number 7 is a public hearing for the retail marijuana store, the license renewal for Tumbleweed. Kathy, anything you want to do to introduce this one?
I think the memo kind of says everything. They were, after we had enacted a new ordinance, they weren't in compliance with our sign code, but they have since taken down their green cross, which I think everyone is pretty ecstatic about. So we're comfortable moving forward with this.
Okay.
Daniel has been incredibly professional and very easy to work with. So
Is Daniel here?
I am.
Oh, Daniel. Okay. Thank you.
why don't you, Daniel, can you just, unless they have a question for you?
And I have our new agent, Adam Phillips.
Okay.
I'd like to meet him as well.
All right. Daniel, this is, renewal is typically a straightforward act. Is there anything you'd like to present? So there's nothing you necessarily have to present, but is there anything you'd like to say to the board?
I want you all to know that our intention is to be a good neighbor. And it seemed like maybe some of this got a little out of control. I have several licenses around the state and also in other states, and I want you to know our intention is to be a good citizen, good marijuana. It's a strange business, there's no doubt about it. And I do appreciate the opportunity to have a privileged license in your town.
Thank you. I have to say, speaking for myself, it was incredibly disappointing to have the sign go up the way it did. I don't know if you know, but Mark came to the board and asked us if we thought that that sign would be okay, and I think we were pretty clear in saying, I'm sorry, that doesn't meet the intent of our code, and he went ahead and did it anyway. And it wasn't removed until pretty much it had to be removed in order for your license to be renewed. So I, too, want you to be a good business owner, a good partner with us, and it's behind us. Can't change what's happened in the past, so just in the future, let's perhaps be a little bit more straightforward with each other. How's
Indeed.
that? Great.
Indeed.
Any comments or questions of Daniel? Okay. This is a public hearing, so I'll open up the public hearing to see if there's anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board on this particular issue. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for a motion.
Page is the motion on this is a long application. It's probably the beginning, isn't it?
I would move to approve the renewal of Tumbleweed's retail marijuana store license and move to approve the change of their local agent to Adam Phillips.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Erica, seconded by Marty. Final comments, questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Thanks for coming, Daniel.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
All right.
We can.
Item number 8 is also a public hearing on 2 new medical marijuana cultivation licenses, and the applicant is Rocky Mountain High. Location is 615 Buggy Circle, Unit D. Okay.
So just real quick, we're recommending this be continued based on the Planning Commission's actions and dealing with some compliance issues that we're working with them on. So we weren't comfortable recommending this for approval yet, but there is an ongoing relationship with the management to try to resolve any issues. It's
Okay.
an amiable situation, but we're trying to get the building tightened up a little bit to deal with some odor issues.
Any questions on why we'd continue it?
I do have a question though. What happens if somebody else applies between now and that continuance?
Their licenses are valid.
Okay.
We're just, there's not a, their current licenses are valid.
So there are 2 new licenses that once they hit my desk, nobody else, they're in line.
Okay, got it.
And, the intent was there. It's just they started experiencing these odor issues. But once I received the application and it's deemed complete, then nobody else can come forward with those licenses.
Good question.
I'd entertain a motion to continue.
Well, I move to continue Durango Alternative and PNC Expresses public hearing to May 22nd, 2018.
Second.
Motion by Heather, seconded by Luis. Because it's a continuation, do I need to take public comment?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. All right. Next on the agenda is RFTA discussion. I apologize. I thought that I communicated to RFTA to send a packet of information out to us to consider, but you didn't have that. So there's miscommunication. I take responsibility for that. So I can set the stage for what is going to be presented tomorrow, and then we'll actually have a real discussion on it on May 8th at our next board meeting. Again, I apologize. Tomorrow you'll see at the open house, or I'll ensure that the packet gets to you tomorrow, you'll see a list of projects. These are projects that RFTA is proposing to be funded through a potential mill levy request that would happen in November. So the board has not decided whether to go forward or not. It's pretty likely, I would say, that the board will proceed. Not only are we wondering whether or not to proceed, but it's at what level. We've discussed anywhere from 1 to 5 mills. And it kind of comes down to what's the threshold for voters and what do we want to ask for? There are some projects that, probably wouldn't be funded if we didn't go for the full 5 mills. 5 mills is kind of the total wish list if we got just about everything that we wanted to take RFTA to the next level. I should have prefaced this by saying that it's unlikely that RFTA can continue business as usual without additional funding, and we often hear that. In this particular case, a lot of it has to do with its rolling stock and how the buses and how we funded that in the past. Right now, or I shouldn't say right now, but up until, I don't know, 5 years ago, let's say, most buses were replaced through federal funding, through grants, and that's just the way public transit worked, is that the federal government often came up with grant funding for those buses. That has slowly continued to decrease over the years. So RFTA obviously has to dedicate more funding to just replace the existing fleet that's there, let alone the improvements that we'd like to make to have RFTA continue to provide the services that it has in the past, which is bringing our community, our workforce up and down the valley, serving as an emergency resource, both in times of emergency, but as we witnessed with Grand Avenue Bridge. So really, I would think it's fair to say that the RFTA board feels like additional funding is necessary in order for RFTA to grow and keep pace with the economic development we're all projecting in the Roaring Fork Valley. And so that's what this is all about. Unfortunately, there isn't one thing, like with Bus Rapid Transit and Velociraptor, it was a shiny project that we could point to and say, this is what we're going to get. This is a little bit different. This is enhancing what we have. This is making sure we have new buses. This is making sure technology keeps pace. It's upgrading park and rides. It's upgrading the trail. It's optimizing feeder systems like WeCycle and other things like that. So there isn't one big project that we can point to. So it's going to be, I think, a difficult sell in terms of convincing people of it. So there's a long list of projects, what essentially Ben and I are going to be asking is, how does the board feel? Do we feel like this is something we want to support? And at what level? I think what we need to weigh in as a board is, 5 mills, I'll be honest, is a lot of money. Do we want to keep some capacity for other things, other requests that may come down the road, whether it's from the town, the fire district, the school district, whatnot? The project list is long, and I don't know if Ben will want to speak to, when you're talking about 8 jurisdictions and it needing to pass. So think of this mill levy will be voted on by all members of RFTA. So if you live in Garfield County, Newcastle, Carbondale.
Not Garfield County.
I'm sorry, not Garfield County. Thank you. Thank you, Ben?
I mean, that's an important one.
Yeah, it's a huge one. So if you live in any of the municipalities from Aspen to Newcastle, as well as Pickens County and Eagle County, you'll be voting on this, and it'll act as one big district. So we'll need 50% plus one for that entire district. It doesn't matter what happens right in between, right inside Carbondale or whatnot. And as you can imagine, every community is going to be arm wrestling for projects to be included in that. We've made it clear that, or I shouldn't say it that way. I think it's likely that these projects, unlike some things that are on a ballot, it's not like we can say we guarantee all these things will happen. There will be projects that have better chances of success, that might have more grant funding. So who knows what Carbondale is going to get out of it. But ultimately, we're talking about optimizing the entire system, which ultimately benefits Carbondale. So again, tomorrow night, this open house will go through those projects, and you'll get a list of those projects. You'll get a PowerPoint presentation that kind of walks through all the due diligence. This has been a project for RFTA that's been going on for at least 2 years, probably 3 years. So there's been an enormous amount of work put into vetting the projects, vetting the cost of the projects, vetting how it would improve service over the years. And so it's a little late to say, well, I'd like to add this or I'd like to add that. But nonetheless, the election is still several months away if it's pursued. So again, 2 weeks from today, Ben and I will ask you to just weigh in, and Ben and I will represent you. At the 2 days after that, we'll have our RFTA retreat, where RFTA will hopefully make a decision what we'll go after and for how much. So, again, I apologize that this isn't in the packet, but any general questions on what we'll be discussing in 2 weeks, or Ben, anything you want to add to this?
Really, I mean, I think the challenge, as Dan said, will be kind of articulating exactly what this is for people, and I think making the case that without this, it's not business as usual, and I think that's a hard case to make. It's also a property tax, and RFTA right now is a local sales tax, but not a property tax. It's a new revenue stream. I think both of those will require a lot. I think if we say we want this, I think then it's incumbent upon us to really kind of pound the pavement and make it happen. I think it's going to require a lot of outreach to get support. The one, Carbondale specific issue that Dan and I have met with RFTA staff and talked a lot about, and we don't really have resolution on, I'd say, is just making sure that there's enough in there to really expand mobility of our community to and from the regional system. Right now there's a park and ride expansion, a WeCycle expansion. There's not a circulator expansion. There's history around that RFTA doesn't really fund those. Communities fund those, but RFTA's funding ours because it's a branch to the main line. It's complicated. So I'd love it if this said, and we're going to expand the circulator. I think that's the kind of thing that would get a lot of people in our town to jump on board and to be able to visualize how that changes things for them. So I'd just say keep those things in mind I really hope you can attend tomorrow night. And look through the packet information and think about what makes the most sense for Carbondale, not just from a kind of getting people support point of view, but also this is a big opportunity that won't come again for a long time. Let's make sure we don't look back a year from now and say, oh man, I wish we would have thought of this then. But as Dan said, it's been a really long process of kind of narrowing it, and I think that the scope of the projects makes a lot of sense right now.
Where's the open house? Is it here?
Here.
Okay. Right.
I think it's in that room.
That room, okay.
Yep. Heather and Martin?
Well, I hear you that the major purpose of this funding, of this mill levy, is to raise money for rolling stock because there are no longer federal funds available?
About half of the annual funding, I think, is going to replace.
And another really big ticket item that's really important but kind of hard to convince people that we have to have is major upgrades to the maintenance facilities. I mean, these are tens of millions of dollars to upgrade the Aspen and Glenwood maintenance facility, but when you see the presentation and you see what those facilities were designed to maintain as far as rolling stock and what they're doing now and what they need to be able to do to keep growing, it has to be done, but it's not
it's not
attractive. It's not is fun. So yeah, it's a lot of rolling stock, but that's the other big ticket item you'll see in there. And then there's a lot of kind of smaller items, the park and rides, the trail, the crossings, a lot of pedestrian crossings, stuff like that.
Heather.
I mean, the other, for me, questions that I would want to kind of come away with some of that information is around the sustainability as well, right? So the BRT, underwent and RFTA, such a significant jump as BRT came on board through this grant, right? And this consistently bites us, just us in general, municipalities, where they got the grant funded the capital, and really didn't necessarily think about that long-term sustainability then ultimately of the maintenance, the replacement of the rolling stock. I mean, so for me, there's an aspect of part of what you said, this decision isn't going to come back around for a while. I would really need to see that that's true, especially if it's to go to something as significant as $5 million. What does that mean? And does that mean that you now have that plan in place to be able to maintain and upgrade and maintain again and upgrade and maintain again, right? And not be back in 10 and not be back, because absolutely there was a rally around the BRT. This is going to be a really challenging one to get voters to rally around.
Yeah.
Because I think whether it was lack of funding to make sure that they could operate at the level that the BRT promised, or services, and so I think that it's going to be really challenging to get this through. And so it's one of the things that I need to be able to sell is, to the people that I know that are on the bus all the time, is that aspect of, but are you back in another 10 years or 5 years after that? Or when really is this plan and the system that we have sustainable? And I think that that's a challenge. The mechanics of it, is there a piece where the district that was put in place has all these mechanisms available to go, because it's sales tax now, it's just they can put out a mill levy. I mean, we don't have to change the district as well as ask for a mill levy.
That's very interesting. You mean, how are they allowed to?
So a district in general can get created and have all those aspects of taxing available, right? RFTA just chose to stick with generally sales tax funding when they created it the first time?
Traditionally, transit systems statewide were funded with sales tax.
Right.
And one is the max by the authorization. So we're one.
Right.
We can't have a higher sales tax in Carbondale for RFTA. The state law a while back carved out for regional transit authorities 3 to 5 mills, and we participated in the process last year to have that extended because it was ending in 2020 or 2024.
I think we would have had to go by 2019.
Yeah, but then there was an expiration of when it could be in place for, too, I think. And so we participated in expanding that RFTA. It came to us, but that, I'm not sure if that was in place back when RFTA was formed.
Yeah, the original enabling legislation for RTAs did enable a mill levy, but again, there was a sunset clause on the mill levy. I think that was McGinnis who did that. So yeah, it's been extended, and per Jay, sales tax are tapped out in most, if not all, of the jurisdictions. So,
thank you. That's helpful.
So, this mill levy, is it going to sunset in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or is it in perpetuity?
That's a good question. I don't think we've had that level of discussion yet. So.
It's like a real important question to me.
Well, I think it's a 20-year is the idea. I don't know exactly what the sunset is, but they're calling it Destination 2040, and I think the idea is for RFTA to just maintain and meet demands over the next 20 years. That's how it's been talked about. So I think it'll be a 20-year sunset, but I don't know.
What the open houses are designed to do, what we've hired a consultant to conduct surveys around the district is to ask those types of questions, and do we need to do that? And to that end, I mean, I really think, I'm not trying to sell this and say, please support it. I'm encouraging you to attend to provide honest feedback. I really don't want to go door to door if there's not support for it. So, the next 2 weeks is the time to really be honest and say, no way, I'm not going to support this, or I think it must include this, so we know. Yeah, Marty.
Just another thing to keep in mind. If you do support this, and this board has spoken in the past about the need for additional funding for capital improvements. Okay, you go and you ask voters, give me 3 or 5% for RFTA for the next 20 years. Well, I as a voter, if you come back to me a year or 2 years from now and go, well, give me 3 or 5 mil for capital improvements, I'm not only going to be no, I'm going to be hell no.
Yeah.
So it isn't just RFTA, you're also impacting our ability to ask the voters for funding. That I think we pretty much agree we need a source of funding.
Yep.
Well, and there's the affordable housing, the workforce housing potentially also, which doesn't seem like it's going this November, but I think you're right. These all add up over time and people get tax fatigue.
But they're all tied together. If we add housing,
that's right.
And we're not putting in the transportation system, all we're going to do is put more cars on the road. So they're all, these threads just pull the same
RFTA's
blanket.
core argument in this that I hope comes through tomorrow, and as people learn more, is that the projected growth of the valley is going to generate an unsustainable level of traffic if RFTA is unable to expand to meet demand. That the only thing that keeps the valley livable, essentially, with projected growth rates is a good transit system, and that with their current sources of funding, they're not going to be able to do that. That's the message, and I think that that's true, whether everybody feels like that's worth paying for through this mechanism, at what rate, for how long. Those are the details.
And the other thing I would encourage you, similar to our own mill levy question, is really, if you're not already, get up to speed on how Gallagher will weigh into this. I think the really unfortunate thing about property tax right now is our businesses are subsidizing us residents, and it's a great opportunity with every request to really educate folks on what that is. We can't change that without some significant effort statewide, but it's good for people to know that. So, and it's also important to be able to communicate that. We can say, oh yeah, it's only going to be a couple coffees a month for the residents, but it's a lot more than that for businesses. So, okay. Is anybody not planning to attend?
I can't make it tomorrow.
You can't make it.
I'm not sure if I can, but I've heard it a lot.
Okay.
I've read it.
Lonnie, are you able to attend?
What time does it start?
6 to 7:30.
I can be there for the second half of it.
Okay.
I do have a comment.
Okay, go for it.
I was part of the project information team for the Grand Avenue Bridge reconstruction, and when that was completed, a lot of the citizens were asking why the RFTA improved transportation system or increased service could not be extended into the future. So in looking back perhaps on some of those comments, that might perhaps tie it into what the objectives of this initiative are. So in other words, people are asking for increased or improved service without having any notion of what the cost of that is. They just think that it can happen again, just based on a request. So to tie it into, well, it's not going to be free, and there's not really a driver behind that, like the Grand Avenue Bridge. But if you wish to have these services, this is what it's going to cost, as one thought. The other thing is that I attended the commissioners meeting, Garfield County Commissioners meeting 2 weeks ago, and there was a very comprehensive presentation given by the state demographer. And she's been following the demographics for 12 years, so she's got a really good handle on what the growth rate is and what the potential is through 2030 roughly. And we're expected to grow at least 20%. So again, tying into the housing challenge with our roadways and connectivity corridors, what they are, it would be another potentially argument to support it, or at least a factor to consider. So I'll go back and look through my notes to see exactly what the ask was from the public to the information team, and I'll pull up the link to the demographer's statistics, and we can perhaps use that as data to inform this conversation further.
Great. Thank you.
Is it kind of an open thing, 6 to 7:30, or be there for the hour and a half? Do you
That's
know?
a good question. I assume it's an
Let's
open
set up.
house, probably boards.
And go type thing?
There might be some introductory comments, but I don't think it's the end of the world if you're late.
So Dan, I just want to say one thing, and I apologize, but I got a packet of information from RFTA, but I thought it was for the May 8th meeting. I thought you added this at the last kind of minute, and then it was just a discussion. I had no idea that information was for this meeting and not the May 8th meeting that's been scheduled for a while, so I apologize.
Either way, it was my miscommunication. It was either you or RFTA, so. All right. Any questions of Jay or Kathy on any of the administrative reports and minutes? Lots of good information in there.
Good financial report.
Yeah.
So here.
I was interested to see
Seeing some
Glenwood
uptick.
Springs in the paper say that their revenues are down. Renee's not here, but it's interesting that ours are up and theirs are down. I was thinking that this might be from our big online retailer, but they would be getting the same thing. So
Yeah, I think one of the challenges in that article in the paper is it's a 1-month snapshot.
Yeah.
And we're giving you a 3-month snapshot.
okay, that makes sense.
So even though we'll have a good month and then so-so and then a good month. One, like for Glenwood, if you had 2 major retailers report late, that can swing a
Gotcha.
month. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. That's good context.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why we give you quarterly, and then we put in the weekly report what the monthly side is, because I don't put a lot of stock in that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Anything else?
Better get next door before everybody leaves.
All right. We are adjourned. Pat, you're just here for